The first time Emma Vale saw the black icebreaker, she thought it was a ghost. It emerged through the white violence of the Alaskan storm, like something the ocean had rejected, massive, silent, and impossible. Its hull was dark as obsidian, cutting through ice that should have trapped any normal vessel for days. Searchlights carved through the snow, sweeping across the wreckage of her research station, across the collapsed antenna tower, across the broken dock where the sea had already swallowed half her equipment. Emma stood barefoot inside the ruined doorway of the marine station, wrapped in a survival blanket, blood drying at her temple, one hand pressed against the emergency radio that had gone dead hours ago. Behind her, the wind screamed through shattered windows. In front of her, the island disappeared beneath snow and darkness. No one was supposed to come. Not the Coast Guard. Not in this storm. Not before morning. Maybe not before it was too late. Then the ship's horn sounded once, low and deep, vibrating through the island like a warning from beneath the sea. A ramp lowered through the storm. Men in black tactical coats moved onto the dock, with the calm precision of soldiers, rifles angled down, faces hidden beneath hoods. And at the center of them walked a man who did not hurry, even as the storm tried to tear the world apart around him. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a black wool coat that snapped in the wind. Snow gathered in his dark hair and along the sharp lines of his jaw, but he never lowered his gaze from her. Emma's fingers tightened around the radio. The man stopped a few feet away. His eyes moved over her face, the blood on her skin, the bruises forming along her wrist, the ruined station behind her. Something dangerous shifted behind his expression, but his voice remained calm. "Emma Vale," he said. She froze. She had never told the distress channel her name. The man stepped closer, blocking the wind with his body, as if the storm itself had offended him. "You're coming with me." Emma stared at him through the snow, heart pounding so hard she could barely breathe. "Who are you?" His eyes held hers. "Dante Morozov." Even alone on a forgotten island, Emma knew that name. The Morozov family owned ports, shipping companies, hotels, casinos, and rumors no journalist ever survived proving. In Seattle, men lowered their voices when they mentioned him. In Anchorage, police captains pretended not to see his ships. In Russia, New York, Vancouver, and every city where cold water touched money, Dante Morozov was spoken of like a storm that chose who lived. And somehow, he had come for her. Emma took one step back. Dante noticed. His expression did not soften. "The roof has less than 10 minutes before it caves in," he said. "Your generator is flooding. Your satellite phone is crushed under the east wall. You have a concussion, mild hypothermia, and 2 men with rifles moving toward this station from the North Ridge." Emma's blood went cold. "What men?" Dante's gaze flicked past her into the darkness. "The ones who made sure the storm wasn't your only problem tonight." Before she could answer, a gunshot cracked through the wind. Glass exploded behind her. Dante moved faster than thought. His arm locked around her waist, pulling her against his chest as his men returned fire into the snow. Emma's breath vanished. For one impossible second, she felt only him cold wool, controlled strength, his hand firm at her spine, his body between hers and the bullets. "Do exactly what I say," he murmured near her ear. "I don't take orders from criminals." His eyes dropped to her mouth for less than a second, then returned to her eyes. "Tonight you do." The station groaned above them. Another shot tore through the doorframe. Dante lifted her off her feet and carried her into the storm as the only home she had known for 11 months collapsed behind them. Emma fought him until the cold stole the strength from her bones. She kicked once, weakly, against his coat. "Put me down." "No, I can walk. You can barely stand." "I said put me down." Dante looked down at her, snow clinging to his lashes. "And I said no." There was no anger in his voice. That frightened her more than shouting would have. He spoke like a man who did not need volume because the world had already learned to obey him. The dock shuddered beneath them. His men moved around them in a protective formation, firing into the whiteout at shadows Emma could not see. The storm swallowed muzzle flashes almost instantly. Her station burned behind them in patches of orange light, smoke twisting sideways in the wind. She saw one of her whale-tracking hard drives fall from a broken crate into the snow. "My data," she gasped. "I need—" Dante turned his head slightly. "Mikhail." One of his men broke formation without hesitation, sprinting toward the burning wreckage. Emma stared at Dante. "You don't even know what that is." His jaw tightened. "I know exactly what it is." That was the first crack in the mystery. The second came when they reached the icebreaker. Inside, the ship did not look like a rescue vessel. It looked like a floating fortress disguised as luxury. Steel corridors, armed guards, security cameras, black marble floors where there should have been rubber mats. Warm light glowing from private rooms that looked more like a penthouse than a ship. Dante carried her into a medical suite and set her on the examination bed with surprising care. A doctor appeared immediately, as if he had been waiting for her specifically. Emma pulled the survival blanket tighter around herself. "Where are you taking me?" "Somewhere the storm cannot reach you." "That is not an answer." Dante removed his gloves slowly. His hands were large, scarred across the knuckles, elegant in a way that made the violence behind them feel more deliberate. "You are in danger, Dr. Vale." "I was in danger because my station collapsed." "No." He leaned one hand against the bed beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. "Your station collapsed because someone wanted you dead." The doctor touched her temple with gauze. Emma flinched, but her eyes stayed on Dante. "That's impossible." Dante's face remained unreadable. 3 days ago, your acoustic monitors recorded a pattern that should not exist in protected waters. 2 days ago, your encrypted backup was accessed from a server in Juneau. This morning, a storm evacuation order for your island was delayed by 6 hours through a falsified Coast Guard relay. Emma's breath thinned. Only one person outside her station knew about that data. Her supervisor, Dr. Leonard Pierce. "He told me the delay was because of storm routing," she whispered. Dante said nothing. Emma swallowed hard. "How do you know all of this?" His eyes darkened. "Because I have been watching the people watching you." The room seemed to tilt. The doctor paused, sensing the sudden change in her pulse. Emma pushed his hand away and slid off the bed too quickly. Pain flashed behind her eyes, but she forced herself upright. "You've been spying on me?" Dante's expression hardened. "I have been keeping you alive. I live alone on an island because I don't want men like you deciding what happens to me." A flicker of something passed through his face. "Men like me are the reason you made it off that island. And men like you are usually the reason women need saving in the first place." For a moment, the room went silent except for the growl of the ship moving through ice. Dante stepped closer. Emma refused to move back, even though every instinct in her body told her to. "You should be afraid of me," he said quietly. "I am." His gaze lowered to the pulse beating at her throat, but not enough. Her breath caught. Dante noticed. Of course he noticed. He seemed to notice everything she tried to hide. Then he turned away, as if denying himself something. "Treat her," he told the doctor. "No sedatives unless she agrees." Emma watched him walk toward the door. "Dante." He stopped. It was the first time she said his name. Something in his shoulders stilled. "Why do you care if I live?" He did not turn around. "Because the ocean took someone from me once." His voice dropped lower. "And I will not let it take you too." For the first 3 days, Emma refused to leave the medical suite, except to demand access to a phone. Dante refused every time. The storm worsened. Satellite connection failed. The icebreaker, the Vorin, moved north instead of toward the mainland, cutting through frozen sea while the sky stayed black, and the world vanished beyond reinforced glass. Emma learned the ship had a gym, a command deck, private dining rooms, a library, and a locked lower level guarded by men who watched her too closely. She also learned Dante did not sleep much. Sometimes, when she woke from fractured dreams of the station collapsing, she saw him through the glass wall of the corridor, standing in the shadows, as if he had been there for hours. Not entering, not speaking, just watching. It should have made her feel hunted. Instead, it made her feel like nothing could reach her without going through him first. She hated that. On the 4th morning, Emma found her recovered hard drives arranged neatly on a table in the ship's lab. The lab was fully equipped, not improvised, not generic. It had the exact acoustic analysis software she used, the same whale migration mapping interface, even a repaired version of her own custom tagging system, the one she had built herself and never published. Emma stared at the screens, cold spreading through her chest. Dante stood at the far end of the room, speaking quietly with a technician. He looked almost unreal there, surrounded by marine charts and blue sonar light. His black shirt rolled at the sleeves. His attention, absolute. She walked toward him slowly. This lab was prepared before the storm. The technician stopped typing. Dante dismissed him with a glance. Emma's voice sharpened. Answer me. Yes? You knew I'd end up here. I knew there was a chance. You built a lab for me on a Mafia ship. His mouth barely moved. Icebreaker. Do not correct me right now. Something almost like amusement touched his eyes, but it disappeared quickly. Emma pointed at the screens. How do you have my software? Dante's silence answered before he did. She stepped back. You hacked my research. I protected your research. You stole it. I copied it before Sokolov's people could erase it. The name struck the room like a blade. Viktor Sokolov. Emma knew it from maritime news. A Russian shipping billionaire. Arctic routes. Luxury philanthropy. Conservation donations. A charming villain. No one called a villain in public. He funds ocean preservation programs, she said. Dante's expression turned cold. He funds graves. Emma shook her head. What does he have to do with whales? Dante pressed a key. A sound pattern appeared on the screen, low-frequency pulses, repeating beneath whale calls. Emma moved closer, despite herself. Her anger faded into scientific focus. That's not natural. No. It's not seismic testing either. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. The intervals are wrong. It's directional. Dante watched her face, not the screen. Emma's stomach tightened as the pattern became clearer. These pulses would disorient them, she whispered. Drive them off migration corridors, or away from shipping lanes. She looked at him. Dante's voice was calm, but the rage beneath it was ancient. Sokolov uses illegal sonar fields to clear protected waters before moving weapons under commercial cover. Your whales were the first witnesses. Emma looked back at the screen. For almost a year, she had believed the disappearing pods were an ecological tragedy. Climate change, food disruption, noise pollution, all true, but incomplete. Her whales had not vanished. They had been driven away. Some had likely died trying to escape a sound humans could barely understand. Her throat burned. I can expose this. Yes. Then take me to Anchorage. I'll contact NOAA, federal investigators, journalists. You will be dead before the first email sends. Emma turned on him. You don't get to decide that. Dante stepped close enough that the blue sonar light cut across his face. Sokolov controls investigators. He owns journalists. He buys scientists with grants and buries the ones he cannot buy. Like Pierce? Dante's silence returned. Emma's breath caught. Dr. Leonard Pierce had recruited her, recommended the island, approved her funding, sent her equipment. He had been fatherly, patient, kind. A perfect lie. Dante looked at her differently then. Not softly. Dante did not seem built for softness, but carefully. Pierce gave him your location updates. Emma turned away before he could see what that did to her. Too late. Dante's voice lowered. Emma, don't. He betrayed you. I said don't. She gripped the edge of the table, staring at years of work glowing on the screen. She thought of every call with Pierce, every encouraging email, every time he had told her she was making history. And all along, he had been leading predators to her door. Dante came closer but did not touch her. That restraint was worse. If you knew, she whispered. Why didn't you warn me? His silence stretched too long. Emma looked back. Why? Dante's face had closed again. Because I needed to know who Pierce answered to. She stared at him. The betrayal landed in a different place. You used me. His jaw tightened. I kept you alive. You used me as bait. I had men near your island. Not near enough. For the first time, Dante looked wounded. Not visibly. Not enough for anyone else to notice. But Emma saw it in the slight stillness around his eyes. I miscalculated the storm, he said. No, you miscalculated me. She moved past him toward the door. Dante caught her wrist. Not hard. But enough. Emma looked down at his hand, then up at him. The entire room changed temperature. His thumb rested against the inside of her wrist, where her pulse betrayed her anger, her fear, and the terrible awareness of how close he was. Let go, she said. His eyes dropped to where he touched her. For 1 second, he looked like a man fighting himself. Then he released her. Emma walked out, before he could see her hands shaking. That night, The ship entered waters too dangerous for maps. The storm trapped them between moving ice fields and a coastline of black cliffs. Dante ordered the Vorin toward a hidden inlet where an old Morozov safe house stood above the harbor, half buried in snow, invisible from the sea unless someone already knew where to look. Emma watched from the observation deck as black SUVs waited near the dock, engines running, headlights glowing like animal eyes in the blizzard. "You said no one could reach us," she said. Dante stood beside her, hands clasped behind his back. "I said the storm couldn't." She looked at the vehicles. "And people?" His gaze hardened. "People always try." Inside the safe house, everything smelled of cedar smoke, leather, and cold stone. The windows faced the frozen harbor. A fire burned in a massive hearth. Armed men took positions without speaking. The house was luxurious, but lonely, like it had been built for a king who trusted no one. Emma was given a bedroom overlooking the water. Dante's room was across the hall. She noticed that immediately, and hated herself for noticing. That evening, she found a locked study downstairs and picked the lock with a field tool from her survival kit. She had broken into frozen equipment cases in worse conditions. A Mafia safehouse door was not going to stop her. Inside, she found maps. Not business maps, not shipping maps, Emma maps. Her island, her station, her supply routes, her grant connections, photos of her at conferences, photos of her at docks. A photo of her laughing with Pierce outside the University of Washington Marine Lab. Her stomach turned. Then she found a file marked Vale. Inside were documents about her father. Emma stopped breathing. Thomas Vale had died when she was 16 in what the official report called a boating accident near Kodiak. He had been a marine acoustics engineer. Quiet, brilliant, obsessed with ethical sonar regulation. Emma had followed his path without fully admitting it to herself. The file contained his accident report, and a second report she had never seen. Sabotage suspected. Witness silenced. Morozov, asset, deceased. A photograph slipped from between the pages. Her father, younger, standing beside a man Emma recognized instantly. A younger Dante Morozov. She stumbled back. The door opened behind her. Dante stood in the threshold. For once, his calm looked dangerous in a different way, not controlled, but barely held together. "You should not be in here." Emma held up the photograph. "My father knew you." Dante's eyes moved to the picture. "Yes." "How?" "He worked for me." The words struck harder than the storm. Emma shook her head. "No. My father was not connected to criminals. He was connected to me. That is not better." Dante entered the room and closed the door behind him. Emma backed away until the desk hit her hip. "What did he do for you?" "He developed acoustic masking technology for Morozov vessels. Defensive systems. Ways to hide from Sokolov's surveillance. My father helped Mafia ships disappear?" Dante's voice sharpened. "Your father helped refugees disappear. Women Sokolov trafficked. Children moved through ports under false cargo manifests. Men who testified and would have been executed before trial." Emma wanted to reject it. She wanted the world simple enough that criminals were only criminals, and good men never needed monsters. But Dante's eyes did not let her have simplicity. "My father died in an accident." "No." Her voice cracked. "Don't. Sokolov killed him." The room went silent, except for the fire. Dante looked at the photograph, and something old and brutal moved through his face. Thomas discovered Sokolov was using whale migration data to hide illegal routes through protected waters. He planned to testify. I promised him protection. Emma's eyes burned. "You failed." Dante did not flinch. "Yes." The honesty hit her harder than any excuse would have. "He had a daughter," Dante said. 16, brilliant, stubborn. He asked me, if anything happened, to make sure she was never pulled into our world. Emma laughed once, broken and disbelieving. "So you watched me instead?" "I stayed away." "You call this staying away?" "For 13 years, yes." She stared at him. 13 years. Scholarship approvals. Anonymous equipment grants. Emergency repair funds that arrived without explanation. The rare research permit no one else could secure. The station generator replaced after a malfunction she had never reported. All the invisible hands she had mistaken for luck. "You funded my work." "Yes." "You followed my life. I protected it. You controlled it." Dante stepped closer, his face hardening because anger was easier for him than guilt. I kept every predator my world created away from you, except yourself." The words landed between them. Dante stopped. Emma expected him to deny it. He didn't. Instead, his voice dropped to something almost intimate. "I was the one predator I could not keep away forever." The fire cracked behind her. Emma's breath trembled. For a moment, neither of them moved. The room felt too small for the truth standing inside it. Dante's gaze held hers with terrifying restraint, as if touching her would be both surrender and sin. Then shouting erupted downstairs. Gunfire shattered the windows. Dante moved instantly. He dragged Emma behind the desk as bullets tore through the study walls. His body came over hers, one hand braced near her head, the other drawing a pistol from beneath his coat. The room exploded into snow, glass, and smoke. Emma clutched the file against her chest. Dante looked down at her. "Stay behind me." She stared at him, furious, terrified, and unable to ignore the fact that he was bleeding from a cut across his cheek and still shielding her with his entire body. "Do you ever get tired of saying that?" "No." "Why?" His eyes burned in the dark. "Because you never stay there." He rose and fired twice. The house became a war zone. Men moved through the halls. The chandeliers shook with each shot. Emma followed Dante through smoke-filled corridors while his guards closed ranks around them. At the staircase, one attacker broke through the side door and aimed directly at her. Dante shot him before Emma could scream. Not with rage, with precision. That frightened her more. He pulled her into a hidden passage behind a wall of books. The door closed behind them, sealing away the noise of violence. They descended into darkness, the passage lit only by emergency red lights. Emma's breath came too fast. Dante stopped halfway down the stairs and turned to her. "Look at me." She shook her head. "Emma, I just saw you kill a man. He came to kill you. That doesn't make it easy." "No," he said quietly. "It makes it necessary." She looked at him then. Really looked. Blood marked his cheek. Snow melted in his hair. His black shirt was torn at the shoulder. He looked like every warning she had ever been given about dangerous men, and yet his hand hovered near her arm without touching, waiting for permission even now. That contradiction was the thing that ruined her. "You scare me," she whispered. His expression did not change, but his voice softened by 1 degree. "Good. That's your answer? If you stop being afraid of what I am, you will forget what this world costs." "And what about you?" she asked. "Are you afraid of anything?" Dante looked at her for a long time. Then he said, "Yes." The answer was so unexpected she forgot to breathe. "What?" His eyes moved over her face, as if memorizing it against his will. The thought of arriving 5 minutes later. The tunnel seemed to close around them. Above, the safe house burned. Below, Emma realized the most feared man in the north was afraid of losing her, and that fear was becoming more dangerous than the storm. They escaped through an underground dock beneath the cliff. A smaller vessel waited in black water, engine humming. Dante's men loaded equipment, hard drives, weapons cases, medical bags. Emma stood near the edge of the dock, watching smoke pour from the house above. Her father's file was still in her hands. Dante came to stand beside her. "Sokolov will think we're heading south," he said. "We go north. Farther into the storm?" "Yes." "That sounds insane." "It usually works." She glanced at him despite herself. For the first time, the corner of his mouth moved slightly. Not a smile. Something more dangerous because it almost was. Emma looked away quickly. "You said Sokolov killed your daughter." The almost smile vanished. The harbor wind moved between them. Dante's gaze fixed on the dark water. Her name was Anya. Emma waited. He did not continue for so long she thought he wouldn't. Then he said, "She was 7. She liked whales." The words changed the air. Emma looked at him. Dante's face remained controlled, but his eyes had gone somewhere else. "I took her on one of my ships. She heard recordings of humpbacks and decided they were singing because they were lonely." His jaw tightened. "Sokolov planted a bomb meant for me. She was in my cabin." Emma's throat closed. "I'm sorry. I killed everyone involved." There was no pride in it. No apology either. Just fact. And Sokolov? He let others die for him, as always. Emma understood then. Her data was not just evidence. It was revenge. "You don't want justice," she said. Dante looked at her. "You want him destroyed." "Yes. And you need my research to do it." "I did." His eyes held hers. "Before I met you in the storm, Yes. And now? He stepped closer. The dock lights flickered over his face. Now I would burn every route, every ship, every dollar, and every chance at revenge, if it kept you breathing. Emma's heart betrayed her again, beating too hard, too fast. You can't say things like that. I know. Then why say it? Because I am done lying to you. The wind pulled at her hair. Somewhere above them, the safe house roof collapsed in a roar of flame and snow. Emma looked at this man, this criminal, this protector, this living contradiction tied to her father's death and her survival. She should have stepped away. Instead, she whispered, "I don't know what to do with you." Dante lifted his hand slowly, giving her time to refuse. She didn't. His fingers brushed a strand of wet hair from her cheek, barely a touch, almost nothing. But Emma felt it everywhere. His voice was rougher when he answered, "Neither do I." Then the dock lights went out. A shot rang across the water. Dante shoved her behind a steel pillar as bullets sparked from the dock. "Move." They ran for the vessel while his men returned fire. Emma slipped on ice, and Dante caught her against him. His arm locked around her waist, her hands landed on his chest. For one breath, chaos blurred around them, and all she could feel was his heartbeat under her palm. Steady, controlled, human. Then he lifted her onto the vessel and climbed in after her as the engine roared into the black Arctic water. For the next 2 weeks, the storm held them prisoner. Not in one place, but in a world with no exits. The Voron became their moving fortress again, damaged but alive, pushing through ice fields under bruised skies. Sokolov's network hunted them through ports, satellites, and corrupted rescue channels. Dante responded with silence, misdirection, and the kind of patience only truly dangerous men possessed. Emma worked in the lab for 16 hours a day. Dante watched over her from the doorway more often than he admitted. She mapped the sonar pulses against whale disappearance patterns. The data revealed routes hidden inside ecological disaster. Every missing pod aligned with a weapons corridor. Every acoustic disruption corresponded with a Sokolov vessel traveling under false registry. The deeper she went, the more horrifying it became. This was not one crime. It was an empire built beneath whale song. One night, she found Dante alone in the observation lounge, standing before the dark glass as aurora light moved faintly above the storm clouds. He held a child's drawing, a whale, drawn in blue crayon. Emma stopped at the doorway. "I can come back." "No." His voice was quiet. She stepped inside. The room was dim, lit by green sky and dashboard glow. Dante looked different without men around him. Not softer. Never that. But lonelier. Anya drew that? Yes. Emma stood beside him, leaving space between them. She had good taste. Dante looked at the drawing. "She would have liked you." The words entered Emma carefully, painfully. "She didn't know me." She liked stubborn women. Her nanny was terrified of her. Emma smiled faintly before she could stop herself. Dante saw it, and for a second, his gaze lingered on her mouth with such naked restraint that her smile faded into silence. The air shifted. Outside, ice scraped the hull. Inside, neither of them moved. Dante spoke first. "I should not want you." Emma's pulse jumped. "Then don't." His eyes lifted to hers. "If it were that simple, you would already be safe from me." She should have left. Instead, she asked, "Am I not safe?" Dante turned fully toward her. "With me, yes." His voice lowered. "From me, I don't know." The honesty should have frightened her. It did, but it also pulled at something in her she did not want to name. He stepped closer. Slowly. Each inch an invitation and a warning. Emma did not move back. Dante raised his hand, then stopped before touching her face. His fingers hovered near her skin, trembling almost imperceptibly. That tiny loss of control from a man built entirely of control undid her. "Dante," she whispered. His eyes closed for half a second. "Say my name like that again, and I will forget every reason I should stay away from you." Her breath caught. Then alarms screamed through the ship. Red lights flooded the lounge. Dante changed instantly. "What is it?" Emma asked. His phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, and his expression went lethal. "Pierce." Emma's blood chilled. Dante answered on speaker. Dr. Leonard Pierce's voice filled the room, calm and familiar, the voice that had guided her career. "Emma, thank God you're alive." She stared at the phone. Dante watched her face. Pierce continued. Listen to me. You need to get away from Morozov. He has been manipulating you. Your father tried to expose him, not Sokolov. Dante had him killed. Emma's chest tightened. Dante said nothing. Pierce's voice softened. I know this hurts, but I can protect you. Send me your coordinates. Emma looked at Dante. He held her gaze, expression unreadable. The terrible thing was that Pierce knew exactly where to cut. Her father, her trust, her fear of Dante. All of it. Why should I believe you? She asked. Pierce exhaled. Because I loved your father like a brother. Dante's jaw flexed. Pierce said. And because Dante Morozov has a daughter. Emma froze. Dante's eyes sharpened. Pierce continued, voice turning colder. Not the dead one. The living one. The room stopped. Emma looked at Dante. For the first time since she had met him, Dante Morozov looked truly caught. Pierce laughed softly. He didn't tell you? Ask him about the child hidden in Sitka. Ask him why Sokolov wants your data so badly. Ask him what he traded to keep that little girl alive. The call ended. The alarm kept screaming. Emma stepped back from Dante. Is it true? Dante's silence was answer enough. You have another daughter? His face hardened, but pain moved beneath it. Yes, Emma whispered. And you didn't tell me? No. Why? Because the fewer people who know, the longer she lives. Emma stared at him, the betrayal sharper because part of her understood. What's her name? Dante's voice changed. Sophia. How old? 5. The number hit Emma strangely. Not as scandal, but as a child hidden from a war she never chose. Is she yours? Yes. Who is her mother? Dead. Emma closed her eyes. Dante stepped forward. She stepped back. He stopped immediately. That hurt more than if he hadn't. Emma. No. You don't get to do that. You don't get to pull me into your revenge. Hide my father. Hide your child. Tell me you'd burn the world for me, and then expect trust. I expect nothing. Good. His eyes darkened. But I will still protect you. Because of the data? No. Because of my father? No. Then why? His control cracked just enough for the truth to come through. Because when I sleep, I hear the station collapsing. Because when you walk into a room, I count exits. Because every time you stand too close to danger, something in me becomes worse than I already am. Emma's lips parted. Dante's voice dropped. Because I am beginning to understand that revenge kept me alive, but you are making me want something after it. The red lights flashed over his face. Emma felt the words like heat in a frozen room. Then the ship shook violently. An explosion tore through the lower deck. Sokolov had found them. The Vorin burned beneath the storm. Emma ran through smoke with Dante's coat around her shoulders and a hard drive clutched to her chest. Water poured through ruptured steel. Men shouted in Russian and English. Somewhere below, the engine groaned like an animal dying. Dante moved beside her, calm in the kind of chaos that made other men panic. He fired only when necessary, gave orders only once. Every person around him obeyed immediately. But when Emma stumbled, his composure fractured. He caught her too fast, pulled her too close. Are you hit? No. His hands moved over her arms, her face, checking for blood. I'm Fina. His eyes locked on hers. You say that when you are not. She almost laughed. But smoke burned her throat. A second blast threw them against the wall. The lights died. Emergency blue glow filled the corridor. Dante's radio cracked. Boss. Sokolov's men breached the aft deck. Dante looked toward the stairwell. Emma knew that look. No. He turned to her. You go with Mikhail. No. Emma. I am not your package to move around. You are the only thing on this ship that matters. The words hit too deeply, too suddenly. She shook her head. Your daughter matters. His expression changed. Yes. Then we save her too. Dante stared at her through smoke and blue light. For all his power, he looked almost helpless before that offer. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. Pierce exposed her because Sokolov is coming for her next. If my data can stop him, we finish this. Not at the cost of you. You don't get devotion without trust, Dante. He went still. Emma stepped closer. You want me to trust you? Then trust me enough to stand beside you. The ship groaned around them. For a second, Dante's hand rose to her face. This time, he touched her. His palm was warm against her cheek. His thumb brushed soot from her skin. The tenderness was almost unbearable, coming from a man with blood on his shirt and a gun in his hand. "If you die," he said quietly, "I will become something no one survives." Emma held his chaser. "Then don't let the storm take me." Something broke open in his eyes. He leaned in, not enough to kiss her, only enough for his forehead to almost touch hers. "I won't." Then he turned, and became the nightmare men feared. The final confrontation took place on the ice. Sokolov's men forced the Voron toward a pressure ridge where ice rose like broken glass beneath the storm. Dante evacuated the surviving crew onto the frozen expanse while flames climbed the icebreaker's side, turning snow orange. Across the ice, another vessel waited, sleek, white, predatory. Viktor Sokolov stepped down with Pierce beside him. Emma felt the betrayal in her bones. Pierce looked older in person than on calls, smaller somehow, but his eyes were the same, kind enough to be trusted, empty enough to sell that trust. "Emma," he called over the wind, "give me the drive. This doesn't have to end badly." Dante stood in front of her, gun lowered but ready. Sokolov smiled. He was elegant, silver-haired, dressed in a white parka that made him look untouched by the storm he had helped create. "Morozov," he said, "still collecting broken things?" Dante's face did not move. "Sokolov." Emma's hand tightened around the drive. Pierce looked at her. "You don't understand what he is." Emma's voice shook, but it held. "I understand what you are." Pain flickered across Pierce's face, but not enough. "I protected your career. You sold my location. I tried to keep you out of this. You put me in the middle of it." Sokolov sighed. "Touching. But the storm is closing, and I dislike shouting." "The drive, Dr. Vale." Dante's voice cut through the wind. "No." Sokolov smiled wieder. "Then perhaps we discuss Sofia." Dante became utterly still. Emma saw it, then the one name that could cut him open. Sokolov lifted a phone. On the screen was a live video feed. A little girl sat in a warm bedroom, clutching a stuffed whale. Emma's breath caught. Dante's expression did not change, but his eyes turned deadly. Sokolov said, "My men are outside her door. The drive, or Morozov loses another daughter." The storm roared. Emma looked at Dante. For all his power, he was trapped. Revenge or child. Justice or blood. Then Emma understood why her father had trusted him. Not because Dante was good, but because he could be terrible for the right reasons. She stepped out from behind him. Dante's hand caught her arm. "No." She looked back at him. "Trust me." His grip tightened. Every instinct in him rebelled. Then, slowly, painfully, he let go. Emma walked forward onto the ice. Pierce's eyes filled with relief. "Good girl." Dante's entire body went rigid. Emma stopped halfway between them. She held up the drive. "This contains enough acoustic data to expose every illegal route Sokolov has used in protected waters." Sokolov tilted his head. "Yes. It also contains a live transmission packet." His smile faded. Emma's voice steadied. "When you accessed my backup in Juneau, you triggered a protocol my father built into an old acoustic archive. You didn't just steal my data. You opened his." Pierce went pale. Dante looked at her sharply. Emma kept her eyes on Sokolov. "My father was recording you before I ever knew your name." Sokolov's expression hardened. Emma pressed the drive's side button. A small light turned green. "Everything is already transmitting." Pierce lunged toward her. Dante moved. The ice became violence. Gunfire cracked across the storm. Dante crossed the distance like a shadow, taking Pierce down before he reached Emma. Sokolov's men opened fire. Morozov's men answered. The burning icebreaker roared behind them, flames twisting into snow. Emma dropped to the ice as bullets split the air above her. Sokolov grabbed her from behind. Cold metal pressed to her throat. Dante froze. The entire battlefield seemed to stop with him. Sokolov held Emma against his chest, smiling through the snow. "Now," he said, "you understand leverage." Dante's eyes locked on Emma's. There was no panic in them, only calculation. And something deeper. Fear. Real fear. Sokolov pressed the blade closer. "Drop the gun." Dante dropped it instantly. Emma's breath trembled. Sokolov laughed. The great Dante Morozov, brought to his knees by a scientist. Dante slowly lowered himself onto one knee in the snow. Emma's heart broke at the sight, not because he looked weak, because he did not care how he looked, not if it kept her alive. Sokolov whispered, "Beg." Dante's eyes never left Emma's. "Let her go." Sokolov smiled. "That is not begging." Dante's voice changed. Lower. Roar. "Please." Emma felt the word move through him like a wound. Sokolov enjoyed it for 1 second too long. That was all Dante needed. Emma drove her elbow back into Sokolov's ribs and dropped. Dante surged up as Mikhail fired from the ridge. The blade cut Emma's shoulder, but missed her throat. Dante reached her before she hit the ice, pulling her behind him as Sokolov staggered back. Sokolov raised his gun. Dante fired first. Once, the storm swallowed the sound. Sokolov fell onto the ice he had used to hide his empire. Pierce tried to crawl away. Emma walked to him, shoulder bleeding, face streaked with snow and soot. He looked up at her. "Emma, please." She stared at the man who had betrayed her father, her work, her life. Dante came to stand behind her, silent. Emma did not ask him to kill Pierce. She did not need to. A helicopter thundered above them through the storm clouds, federal markings barely visible under the snow. Pierce looked up in horror. Emma held his gaze. "No more graves," she said. The authorities took Pierce alive. Dante watched from a distance as Emma gave them the drive, the backup codes, the acoustic maps, and the testimony that would dismantle Sokolov's Arctic network. He did not interfere. That was how Emma knew something in him had changed. Not softened. Changed. 3 weeks later, the storm was gone. The world knew pieces of the truth, though not all of it. News anchors talked about illegal sonar routes, environmental crimes, weapons trafficking, and a brave marine biologist whose data exposed a multinational syndicate. They did not mention Dante Morozov. They did not mention the burning icebreaker. They did not mention the way he had knelt on the ice for her. Emma stood on the deck of a new research vessel outside Sitka, watching a pod of humpbacks move through silver water beneath the morning light. A small voice beside her whispered, "Are they singing because they're lonely?" Emma looked down. Sofia Morozov stood beside her in a red coat, clutching a stuffed whale. Emma smiled gently. "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe they're telling each other they made it home." Sofia considered this seriously. Behind them, Dante stood near the cabin door, watching them with an expression Emma had never seen on him before. Peace did not suit him naturally, but he was trying it on for her. Emma walked toward him after Sofia ran inside to show Mikhail her drawing. Dante's eyes moved to the scar healing near Emma's shoulder. "It still hurts?" "Only when dangerous men stare at it like they personally offended the wound." His mouth almost curved. "I did offend it. You offend many things. Not you, I hope." Emma looked out at the whales. "You terrified me. I know. You lied to me." "Yes. You used me." His jaw tightened. "Yes." She looked back at him. "And then you trusted me." Dante's gaze changed. "That was harder." "I know." The wind moved between them, no longer violent, just cold, clean, honest. Dante stepped closer, slowly, always giving her the choice now. "I cannot promise you a simple life." Emma let out a quiet breath. "I study whales in Arctic storms. Simple was never really my plan." His eyes warmed in that restrained, dangerous way that still made her pulse betray her. "I can promise this," he said. "No one watches you without answering to me. No one touches your work. No one uses your father's name. No one comes for Sofia. And no storm, no man, no ocean takes you while I am breathing." Emma looked at him for a long moment. Then she stepped closer and placed her hand against his chest, over the steady beat she had felt the night the ship burned. "That sounds less like a promise," she whispered, "and more like a threat." Dante lowered his forehead to hers. "With you, Emma Vale, it is always both." This time, when he kissed her, there was no storm interrupting them. No gunfire, no alarms, no burning ship, no secrets rising between every breath. Only the cold Alaskan morning, the sound of whales in the distance, and the dangerous man who had crossed a frozen sea because he refused to let the storm take her. And for the first time in years, Dante Morozov did not look like a man waiting for revenge. He looked like a man who had found something worth surviving for.